It started with a seed. One seed. Just one. Only one. Just one seed. Perfect, whole, complete. One single solitary seed. And it was not indivisible. It could be divided. It could be many. It could be. Out of one comes many. From the many, one. As it is, as it should be, as it must be, as it has always been. World without end. Look at the sky. Look at the stars, the billion trillion heavenly fires burning in the cloak of night. Were they fixed from the start and set to blazing right where they stand? Or did God start with a seed? One seed, just one, only one, just one seed. And clap his hands inside his own great nothing, and out of him created he them. One seed, one spark, one thought, one word. The word was good. It started with a seed, and so did I, for if I started anywhere or as anything, it was surely as a seed. My dear mother's womb, God rest her. Planted there by my dear father, God rest him. She carried and nurtured me, just as this goodly earth carries me still, carries me and my seed, warm and deep beneath my feet. My blood in her body, life growing rich under these fertile clods. Could I tell it now, how it all began? Could I tell it to you, confess it now, my love? My one and only love. That's what you are and always were, though we dared not speak it then. There's only you and the good Lord in this patch of holy ground to hear us now. And the trees. Always the trees. The trees will bear witness to our tale. Shall I tell it? And in the telling somehow bring us closer, closer than we ever dreamed? For the truth is always the surest way to bring us together again. My first orchard, high on a hill overlooking Pittsburgh. I had wandered there lonely from my home state of Massachusetts, and bought it of a man who could not wait for his trees to bear. He was going west too, west with the great migration. By 1790, still binding our wounds of independence, the land of the Shawnee had opened in exchange for land further south. And the new Northwest Territory brought a flood of settlers from the east to the lakelands, to the great Ohio River Valley and beyond. The country was young, as was I, 19 and green, ready for any fool venture that tipped its hat my way, having spent my early years in Leominster and Longmeadow, well apprenticed in planting, pruning, and the special art of varietal grafting, a curious occupation. When does curiosity become a calling? The Lord was strangely silent in those days before I learned to listen, so my youthful impatience cried out, and I called it myself. I would be an orchardist, a nurseryman, a purveyor of Malus domesticus, the original fruit, bitten by Eve, the mother of all men in the first garden. I had not a penny to pay the Pittsburgh man for his trees. But he saw something promising in my nature. So we shook hands on an IOU with a promise to send shares and profits when his trees came in. Alas, I never saw him again. It was not unusual in those days for a good soul to be swallowed up by the western wild. So I made it my pledge over the years to give out the same IOU to so many good souls, numbering 1,000 times 1,000 for my trees, my plantings, and my seeds, that I think the debt was paid. There was a good stand of trees, young but hardy. When the blossoms came in the following spring, and the first buds of fruit burst forth, I felt as a young father might feel, whose blushing bride is just starting to show. so it was. My orchard on a hill, overlooking Pittsburgh, where every family stopped, man, woman, and child on their way to the new Northwest. I had the best spring-fed creek for the watering of their horses as they made their way down to the river where the ferry boats took them across to the western shore. I greeted and farewelled so many that I lost count, always giving them a meal of baked apples, cider, tree cuttings, or seeds to take away. I was a stander at the gate. I had no desire for that rough world beyond, but was content to live in a lofty place, reading my scripture and tending my trees in peace. But the good Lord had other plans for young John Chapman. Dost thou think to live a life in comfort, John Chapman? Oh, yes, Lord. I thought I might. Think again. I don't know if those were his actual words, for he was strangely silent in those days, before I learned to listen. It was a warm day in early June when I first saw her. This young woman arrived from my own home county of Leominster in the Bay State, and she rested weary on my porch in the long afternoon while her husband set to graze and water the horses. She had hair of red gold, fair-skinned, freckled, and sun-kissed, and eyes like pools of green summer light. She seemed in a daze from her travels, and she spoke so gently of the many hardships that awaited them as they journeyed to find their new home along the Western Trail. She said she was newly with child, and indeed her talk of a new and hopeful life beyond the mountains seemed filled with a care that went beyond her own life, but to the life she carried within. Oh, kind sir, there be such trials ahead. A hard trail, a lonely homestead, colder winter, scarcity, starvation, wolves, wildcat, bear, the unknown Indian. I could see the worry on her young face already growing hard like the rutted road she traveled. To lighten her spirits, I fetched her a pouch of seeds with instruction to plant and protect for her unborn babe. In 3 to 5 years, she might have an orchard of her own. She looked wounded for a moment, as if I'd just given her some great burden. And then she clutched the bag to her pouch, to her breast, and said, thank you, kind sir. I will keep them with me always, for if I were to lose them, I could not bear it. It was like all the hope she had was in this little pouch of seeds. Simple seeds I culled washing out the crushed pomace at the local cider mill. I followed her wagon down with the others, as was my custom in the late afternoon when the flatboats were going out take them across to the mouth of the great trail. I could still see the young mother in her white bonnet and her dusty travel cloak, standing close to the rail of a large ferry boat as it pulled away on the green tide. She must have caught sight of me, for she lifted up the bag of seeds to show me she had kept them safe. When suddenly her boat rose high on a wave from another ferry that passed so close as almost to collide. A whistle screamed out over the river. She was thrown forward against the rail. The pouch of seeds flew from her hand down into the foaming water, swept away in the blink of an eye, gone. The world stopped for a moment. And all I could hear was the rushing and churning of the river. The woman stood again, steadied herself. She put on a shy smile to show me she would be strong in her moment of misfortune. But all at once she fell to her knees with her arms outstretched, and her body began to shake with lament. And a wailing cry came over the water and went straight into me, so piteous was the sound. It was nothing less than a supplication, a prayer from the deepest part of her soul, lost beyond lost. Lost beyond lost. The boat traveled on, but she remained long on the deck and would not be moved. I don't think a day goes by when I don't see her there and hear her plea for mercy, that God might help her and help all who were swept up in this common destiny, going from all she knew to a land full of new fears. Lonely homestead, a colder winter, scarcity, starvation, wolves, wildcat, bear, the unknown Indian. No guarantee of survival, no word of kin left behind, no comfort but for the memory of an old home to live upon, but that she had held on. She had held on to those seeds and would so hold the promise of life to come, some small security for her unborn babe and more that might follow, a grove of trees like that of the first garden, bearing fruit that could feed a generation or more, and faith that life might be good and giving and sweet. A heaviness set upon me for some time after that. I could not name it. I grew heavier and deeper, like any seed dropped in the dark ground. Memory of her desperate cry kept me waking on many a sleepless night through the last days of summer and on to the harvest and the gathering of the seeds. Days grew darker and shorter. I grew restless in my solitary life, toiling in the orchard on the hill. Heavy with dreams. Every sack of seeds I put away seemed another 1,000 souls, unborn and unfed and drowned before their time in the river where the young mother lay weeping. In my dream, I saw her laying under the water with her drowned babes, lost beyond lost, lost beyond lost. My own mother, Elizabeth Chapman, sent to heaven when I was only 2. But I heard stories of her strength and endurance when Father was away. A carpenter in Washington's militia. One night I fought to the surface of my dream, and my heaviness began to speak. Lord, why must it be? Why should I not follow her cry into the wilderness and drop my seeds wherever I may, wherever there's a good patch of fertile ground, and forestall the coming of more sorrow, that every fearful mother might arrive in the unknown land, greeted by a vision of hope, life abundant? He made no answer. He was strangely silent in those days before I learned to listen. My heaviness would not quit me. Another night, another moon, getting colder. My trees now bare till spring. Something had taken hold or taken root. God was grafting some new limb onto my soul, and what variety it would make I knew not. But it was not long before I had sold my cabin and my trees. Another IOU passed between strangers, hand to hand. I was down to the cider mill, washing out the crushed pomace and filling my sacks for the work ahead. I was without family. I had a skill. I could come and go as I pleased. Staying behind the flood of settlers just seemed like selfishness unto God and man. If ever there was a sign to begin a new turn, the woman of the lost seeds was surely mine to keep. Her smile on the afternoon porch, hair red gold, her wailing lost over the churning river. I felt my heaviness till the day I started out, in the late fall. Then my life seemed lighter and lighter with every step. Oh, I knew I should have waited till spring for a good thaw, fair weather. But the woods seemed to invite me. The whisper of the running stream. The soft knocking of branches in a high wind. The hooting of an owl, like a prayer from the deep wilderness. My body was on fire. My feet were burning, and I put off my shoes so I could feel the cool frost on dry leaves as I walked. Dost thou think to live a life in comfort, John Chapman? Oh, I knew I was a fool. And my intended mission, more foolish still. But I was not afraid. 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 I was not afraid.